Here's my book. Here's the mindful man reading the chapter, The End of Alf. He flicked on the light switch to say good night and fell asleep with a buoyant heart. When he woke, it was still early, so he went downstairs for a glass of water. The kitchen was slowly becoming overrun with beer bottles and clattering wine bottles. Simon disliked alcohol and hated the smell of it. He was annoyed by all of the bottles lying around. His dad, Alf, was drinking more and more and putting on even more weight. Simon quickly picked up the bottles and tidied the kitchen and started cooking breakfast. Alf was later than usual, so he had no choice but to knock on his bedroom door. It was something he didn't relish. Alf's mood was always bad in the morning, but lately it had become worse. As he opened the bedroom door, he heard the clink and clack of more bottles. It's like living in a bottle factory, he thought, and smiled sadly. Dad, he said, hesitating, breakfast ready. All he got back was a grunt. Simon pondered what to do. He was so busy that he left the breakfast on the table and got on with his paper round. He looked up at Anne's house, and the light was on, and it gladdened his heart to know she was a friend. He sped through the deliveries, avoiding all of the barking dogs by creeping as gentle as possible, and letting the papers fall. For that he was still seeing Anne soon spurned him on. He often wondered about who lived in each house and what their lives were like, if they were like his. He doubted it. He posted the last paper and jogged back home. He wanted to get home to catch Anne on the way to school, but first he needed a glass of water to quench his thirst. He opened the front door and he was surprised to see the TV was still on. Oh no, he thought, he's still home. He stepped into the living room to see his dad sitting in his favourite armchair, apparently asleep. The breakfast was on the floor, half eaten. Daddy said, but the only response was silence. Simon walked round to face him. He got closer and whispered, Dad, but to no avail, and then he touched his arm. He didn't move. He was cold to the touch. To Simon's horror, a thought came over him, but it seemed impossible. Could his dad be dead? Daddy shouted louder, but there was still no response. Wake up, he said with a quiver in his voice. Food was stuck to his white vest, and Simon noticed that he wasn't breathing. There was a pool of sick on the floor, and Simon knew he had to get out of there. He didn't know what to do, and then he realized that Anne lived nearby, and he had no one else to turn to. He ran over and knocked on her door. Her mum answered, which was a relief. Simon managed to tell her what had happened. He wasn't crying, he was in too much shock. Anne brought him a glass of water and he sat on the sofa and watched as they phoned the ambulance. He was in a daze. Within 5 minutes he heard the sirens blaring and the ambulance appeared in the road. All of the curtains began to twitch. Alf was loaded up on a stretcher and put in the back. They struggled to lift him. Simon wasn't sure if he was dead or alive. He couldn't think of either option. My book on Amazon KDP.